right, mic check 212, check 212. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to whoever is listening. As usual, let me check my sound here before we get things started. No, the live stream doesn't officially start till 7:45, but if you know anything about me, I'm all about getting early, being 5 minutes early. Learn that very, very, very early on in my life. Very early on. Having the foot. All right. Making sure the sound checks. So we're good on YouTube. We're good on YouTube. What up, YouTube? What up, YouTube? Welcome to Tackling Turnover with Teamwork. You like how it did that, right? Let me check LinkedIn. It's YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook are biggest platforms for me. So YouTube, we're good on YouTube. What up, YouTube? What up, YouTube? Welcome to. All right, good on LinkedIn. Checking LinkedIn. Turnover. And now Facebook. What up, Facebook? What up? I'm just signing on to my Facebook account, and I see former guest. Shout out to Mark Messiah. See him. He posted Jimmy Kimmel crying, and I am definitely about to get into that. Mark, if you're listening, yeah, we're about to get into Jimmy Kimmel's crying on TV. How ridiculous that is. We're going to talk about all that. All right, we're live on all the platforms. We're good to go. Sound check is good on all the platforms. And let's just do it one more time. Check. 1 2 1 2. Check. Oh, sound check is good on all the platforms. All right, bet. All right, folks, here we are. You see it. You see the thumbnail. Today we are discussing. Well, first of all, let me introduce myself to anyone that may be new to my world. As one, Crookshank here, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published author and educator who is constantly, always, no matter what, here to give you a perspective on teamwork that you will not get anywhere else. What I've done, I've created a business, created a brand, created a movement, created a way of life in which I've taken the teamwork lessons that I've learned on the football field, in the football world, and have systematized it to the point where it's very, very applicable to business. So before we get started on today's subject, which we're going to be talking about how aligning with previous opponents can be the best decision that you've ever made. Before we get into all of that, we have a lot of examples, a lot of ground to cover over the next 45 minutes to an hour. I like to usually these tackling turnover with teamwork episodes. Some of them, last one, I went for a whole hour. I like to keep it somewhere in the 45-minute to hour range, depending on the topic and all that kind of stuff. So before we get into all of the topic today, if you are in the West Palm Beach area, West Palm Beach, Florida, and you are interested in free boxing lessons, you heard me correctly, free boxing lessons, we are officially starting our first session 2 weeks from today, November 23rd. And for everyone who's already signed up, you'll be getting an email this weekend, giving you the dates of when we're going to start, where it's going to be, how you can get the gloves, the waiver, and all that good stuff. We're going to be getting that stuff out to you this weekend. So check your inbox for that. If you have not yet registered and you're interested in doing that in your local, in this West Palm Beach, Florida area, be sure to hit the QR code or message me and let me know that you're interested, and you'll get all the information for that. All right. Next thing right now, today, actually, it's November 8th. Yeah, today is the last day in which we'll be running this promo with the Royal Palm Beach Strikers. It's an under 10 boys soccer team in which all you have to do is pay $20. And actually, let me just show you because I have mine right here. Just pay $20 and you get one of these cards. All right. When you get one of these cards, whenever you go to Domino's and order you a large pizza, you get another large one for free. It's a really, really good deal. Really good deal. And this lasts till June 2025. All right. So hit the QR code for that. Message me if you're interested in that. Also, business owners. If you have not yet, make sure you head over to Free guide.makeyourmove.com. That's free guide.makeyourmove.com. Just put in your information and you will receive a free guide on how to use innovative teamwork the best way to reduce the turnover in your business. That's what I've created. It's really easy to follow. You can start applying a lot of the lessons that you get there. You can start applying that right now to whatever your current position is, whatever your situation is when it comes to your employee. Here's the thing. You do not want to be in a situation in which the people who are working under you, where you have a staff, where you have people who are that you bring into your organization, the organization and the business that you're very passionate about. You don't want them just walking into those doors and just getting a check every day. All right. That is a bad situation. It leads to really poor morale. You need to be doing things, constantly developing ways in which they're able to walk into your doors or walk into your business, however you run your business, however you have it set up. You want them knowing their roles, knowing their measurables, knowing specifically what it is they need to accomplish that day and go out and accomplish it. That's on you as the business owner. All right. So all that being said, let's get into today's topic today. We are discussing how aligning with a previous opponent, aligning with previous people who have a lot of nasty things to say about you, how that when you have put your differences aside and you look to work with people and you are constantly on the growth trajectory, you always have the mindset of growing and getting better. How when you align with people that you've had your differences with, how powerful that can be. And before I get into the subject, I have to give you some reasoning as to why I'm getting into the subject. And it's funny because I actually just had this conversation. This is all raw. Like a lot of you guys who listen to me regularly know that a lot of the stuff I do is really not planned by the book. I'll know a subject, I'll know what it is I'm going to talk about, but then something may happen. I may have to tell that story. I might see somebody and have a conversation, and I can kind of relay the message to you guys. So where I'm going to start with this, because again, we're talking about aligning with previous opponents, and I'm going to use the connection that JD Vance and Donald Trump has and what they were able to accomplish. I'm also going to use a connection or the thing I went through as a kid back in 2001 when I was playing for the Brick Cheney White Oak Warriors. How, 1 year we were rivals with this particular team when we played at a local level, but then we merged with that team and then we moved over to Pop Warner and we won a national championship. So from 01, we were playing against a team that we had, specific rival team. And then 02, when we moved over, those same players that we played against the year before, they merged with us and we ended up winning the championship undefeated. And that was our first year in the league, So I'm going to use that as an example, and I'll dive into the weeds and I'll give you a little more context when we get to that. But before I get started, I want to make sure I have to respond because it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. This politics and the left, the Democrats, the folks who are so anti-Trump have done nothing. A lot of people. Now, I hate to speak for everyone because I'm sure there are some people that I haven't had a chance to have a conversation with who have, graciously accepted the defeat, have moved on at this point and just said, hey, look, Donald Trump's the president. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to move forward the best I can. But then there's other folks who unfortunately have massive platforms who have yet to simply accept the fact that the best candidate won, have yet to accept the fact that, hey, we have no more time. We have no time to be sitting in sorrow and start feeling sorry for ourselves. And, I feel so bad. It was a sad day. We have no time for that bullshit. It just makes no sense. It does nothing. And to be honest with you, what happened really was not that big. It really was not that bad. Like I was having a conversation with gentlemen that I go to the gym every single morning. And I was having a conversation with a gentleman who's real old school cat. You see him in there every single morning. He must be at least in his 70s, has to be in his 70s, but real cut up. I mean, you could tell, like, works out every day, doesn't have health issues, really has it together. And he and I have some incredible, like, gym conversations because we usually finish our workouts at the same time. And I was telling him, I'm like, yo, I don't think it's necessarily the politicians that are dividing us. It's not the politicians. It's not Trump. It's not Kamala. It's not Biden. It's not Obama. It's not anybody you want to mention. It's no individual politician that's dividing us. It's these people that are on TV that have massive platforms that feed a bunch of nonsense to kids, And unfortunately, our kids ingest that, they digest that, and they don't know what to do with that information. In many times, in many situations, they don't have a stable home to really get them straight and say, look, what's going on in the White House is not as important as what's going on in this house. And that's what creates the division. What creates the division is what's going on in the home. All right. So to get started today, I'm going to play you a couple of current events and some of the reactions that I just have to react to. First and foremost, all right, and I'll just tell you, I'll just be right out and just come out and say it. The thing for me that made me vote for Trump, endorse Trump, and want Trump to be in office as opposed to his competitor. And I'm going to do my best not to mention her name as much because her 15 minutes of fame is over with. It's over. As I was telling you today in the Move Swiftly Thought, if you listen to it, her 15 minutes of her and Tim Walz, their 15 minutes of fame is over with. They're done with. They're going to go do whatever it is they're going to do. Not too many people are going to care about those two in the next 2 or 3 months. Right now, the focus is on who's the current president and the current vice president, and how can we work together as a country, do our part to figure out how the next 4 years is going to be better than the previous 4 years, and then so on and so forth. That's the only focus that we should be having at this point. We should be looking back and say, oh, this happened and that happened and I'm so sad. Fuck that. All right. It's important. It's important that we keep moving forward. This is why I love football so much, because you lose a game, you're on to the next week. That's the way it should be. All right, that's the way it should be. But anyway, there's some reactions that I have to make sure I address and I react to because of how, and it gives you an example of what I mean when I say it's the national media that creates this division among society. First one I'm going to play you, it's when, someone that I admire, I'll admit it. I definitely admire Stephen A. Smith. As much as I disagree with a lot of his football takes, I think he has opened a ton of doors for young men like myself, young men of color like myself, who have a voice, who want to be articulate, who want to, be on camera, weren't good enough to play at the professional level, but still want to be involved in sports and all that. So for the most part, when you consider everything, I do like Stephen A. Smith. But the show that he recently went on, The View, I'm telling you, I can't watch that shit. I mean, I can maybe catch a couple minutes of it here and there when I see somebody on that I admire. So I didn't watch the full segment of what Stephen A. Smith's his segment. He made an appearance on The View to talk about the election results and all that. But I did catch this clip, and this clip I want to play you. I'm going to play you this clip, and it shows an example of what I mean when I say it's actually the national media and the people that have massive platforms. It's their fault that we see the division that we see. So here's the clip.
People are going to gravitate to that, and that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. Mm-hmm. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high taxes to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right? But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that. These
That's
are
less than 1% of the population.
I understand that,
but you know what? Add Aaron during the NFL.
Oh my God. Less than 1%. I mean, and the fact that people are clapping is what worries me. It's the fact that people clap to that. Okay, let's just, and if Sonny Holston ever gets a chance to listen to this, think about this. Less than 1% of the population is still a lot of people. There's still a lot of people that are born males and playing in female sports. Okay, so if we were to elect the previous candidate, the one who didn't win, all right, like I said, Kamala Harris, if we were to elect her or anybody on the left and in this feminine movement, where do you think that percentage is going to go, up or down? Especially when you're talking about something that should be 0%. It should be nobody. It should be nobody. Okay, that's the issue. The issue is not, we are, that it's less than 1% or it's a smaller percentage of people. The issue is that it's any percentage. And that is the problem. That's the problem. It's the mindset. It's the mindset of saying, hey, I'm going to just let certain things slide, even though certain people are affected, by the situation. I'm just going to remove it because the percentage is so small that I'm not going to even pay attention to it. That's what's ridiculous. And that's the problem. That's where the issues come in. In the way it's affecting young people is where the real issue is. And there's two more clips that I have to get to before I get into kind of what it is I'm going to be really diving into today, which is more so aligning with opponents. I'm going to give you positive examples of this. But before I give you the positive examples, I have to show you how bad things really currently are. All right. And this next clip, it pains me, it genuinely, in my heart of hearts, pains me to have to discuss it, because I myself, born and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland, I don't like to speak negatively or be overly critical about anyone from Maryland. Anyone that knows me is, went to school with me and, and knows me out here knows, no matter what, I do what I can. I try my best to kind of stick up for the people from Maryland. That is, of course, until Miss Angel Reese has made the national scene. I mean, listen to me, man. As a basketball player, wish her nothing but the best. I think she's a great player. I do think she has ability. I think she's incredibly talented. I really, really genuinely do. But the only reason that I even knew who she was, first of all, it started when she was taunting, doing the can't see me face to Caitlin Clark. And then the media jumped all over it. And, she was getting rewarded for it. She was almost like, she's of the culture. She was almost being praised for taunting an individual who clearly is a fan favorite, someone loves. All right, again, hey, playing the game, you're in college, kind of let that go. But her take on this election and the things that she has said and how much of a massive following she currently has, I have to address this. I have to address this because 2 months ago, this is what Angel Reese said. This is what Angel Reese said. One of the girls that have the following of a lot of young Black girls, or the lot of young Black just college players in general, right? Has a following of a lot of girls who play these sports, and it could be affected when males decide if they want to come play. The responsibility to protect the sport that made her famous. This is what she said in regards to the election about 2 months ago, around the time that Kamala had, made it to the top of the ticket. Listen to what she said.
And she's doing her thing. Her running for president. Have you got a chance to watch her? What are your thoughts on her running for political office?
I haven't been able to tap a lot into the political election and everything going on, so I'm not that educated right now, but just continue to learn and just give feedback. But everybody go out there and vote. I commend that, and I just tell a lot of people to go out there and vote, because we need it for this election.
Not that educated. Hasn't been able to tap into it. Obviously, she's in the middle of the season. Obviously, hey, look, I ain't really been in the politics right now. I'm a rookie. I'm trying to establish myself with the team, all that. I love that response. I thought I was like, all right, cool. She ain't going to get all woke and, oh, yeah, because Kamala's Black woman, go vote for her. I thought that's where it was going to stay. And then something popped up on my feed last night, I think it was, as I was preparing the notes for this show, that I just had to address. I had to address, because if that was the case a couple months ago, how can you possibly tweet this? How can you actually say, as a woman, you're heartbroken for us all, and I'm so disappointed in America, some of you couldn't selfishly put your pride aside, huh? How contradictory, how much of a contradiction is that? And how ridiculous is that when just a few months ago, you clearly stated you have done no education whatsoever on the specific topic. But now you're disappointed in America. Now as a woman, now you're joining forces. So you see where you see how it's not the politicians whatsoever. It's not Donald Trump, nor is it Kamala Harris, nor is it Joe Biden, nor is it any of these people that we're looking to for blame. It's none of these people that creates a division in this country. It's the folks that we have celebrated, the folks that we have given massive platforms to, that haven't really earned these massive platforms for anything really significant, and just have just been kind of people that have gone viral because of one thing. We've given them these platforms, and this is the direction that they're taking young people. This is the direction that they're taking kids. I mean, good, thank God I don't follow her, but could you imagine the young girls, the amount of young girls that actually follow her and have to read something like this? After just a few months ago, she just said, hey, I haven't done much education on the whole political landscape and all that kind of stuff. And it leads me to the final point. I know I'm 20 minutes in, but I'm going to get to the importance of aligning, because today's topic, we're talking about how to align with a previous opponent. I'm going to show you this next clip that has probably already gone viral at this point, but it's of Jimmy Kimmel crying. And He's crying. A comedy host, late night comedy host, has been through a lot, has seen a lot in his life, I'm sure. I don't know his bio or his backstory. But what brings him to tears is incredibly concerning to me. What brings him to tears is incredibly concerning to me. And you're going to find out why in a second. I'm just going to play the clip. We're going to react to it, and then we're going to move forward with the today's agenda.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for our allies.
My God, a terrible night, and a terrible night for people who. It wasn't a close race. It was a landslide. All right. So how can you tell people it's been a terrible night when it's clearly what they wanted? All right. So I'm done. I just had to get that off my chest. So as far as today's topic, which is aligning with a previous opponent, I want to be very clear, and I want you guys to understand. All right. The reason that I myself personally have taken it on myself to taken the responsibility of giving you the proper information is because I realize how bad things are. I think back to when I was a kid, and there was maybe just the news and just watching one TV network. Now I think about the kids now and how they are forced to listen to a lot of the nonsense that I just played about how it's so terrible and how they like to create their pessimistic ways and put all their pessimism onto the young people, regardless of who's listening. They can care less. They're actually the ones being irresponsible. It is my obligation to give you the real truth about the situation. All right. What we saw this week between J.D. Vance and Donald Trump is a true testament of maturity, is a true testament of when you disagree with an individual. Number one, you can disagree. You're supposed to disagree. You're not supposed to align with everything somebody says. It's okay to disagree, but there's a way to disagree respectfully. And then if you do happen to have the opportunity to make things right with that individual, if you can have a conversation, if you can come together as men for a greater cause, men or women, then you should take that opportunity. It's no reason to be walking around with strife. It's no reason. This world is life is too short, number one, and the world is too small, and it's shrinking more and more given our technology, given all the technology that we have. You should not be wasting your time being so angry at someone that you can't have a conversation and you two individuals can't come to an agreement, which is going to be beneficial for the future and beneficial for the young people. What I just played you, the previous 3 clips that I just played you, which was the viewer Sonny Holston is complaining about the fact that it's only 1%, or less than 1% of women or men who are playing in women's sports, or it's Jimmy Kimmel crying, or it's Angel Reese who is disappointed in America, as if anyone cares about what her. Anyway, if it's the previous clips that I played, then yes, we're going to have a divided country, and those people can't get out of their own bubble. They can't start thinking of what everyone is actually going through. Now, when you look at what J.D. Vance was on just a couple of years ago when he first put out his book, and he's on record saying he was an anti-Trumper. He was not someone who supported Trump whatsoever. In fact, I'll just play the clip and we'll get into today's topic.
Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. And I've noticed this willingness from people who think a lot like I do that, look, we told you so. To all these white working class voters, we told you so. We told you that Trump was going to be a terrible candidate. We told you that you were an idiot if you voted for him. The problem is, if you take that attitude of sort of gloating over Trump's defeat, then you're playing into the very thing that gave rise to Trump in the first place, which is a feeling that the elites think that they're smarter than you and just think you're a bunch of idiots. Mm-hmm. Right, one of the biggest drivers of Trump's support, and one of the things that's most predictive of his support, is that you express cynicism about the future and a belief that your kids.
That's what he gives voice to every time he makes a campaign stop.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about the way that he talks about.
Your cynicism is appropriate.
Absolutely,
because those people don't care.
Absolutely. You think about the slogan, "Make America Great Again." The implication is that America isn't great right now, and if you're very unhappy about your life, that's going to resonate.
Do you think this is a large number of people? Do you think this is enough people to elect Donald Trump?
No, I don't think it's a large enough people to elect Donald Trump. I think that this election is really having a negative effect, especially on the white working class, right? Because I think a lot of these grievances are legitimate, but what it's doing is it's giving people an excuse to point the finger at someone else. It's point the finger at Mexican immigrants or Chinese trade or the Democratic elites or whatever else. And sometimes these villains are legitimate. I think it's totally fair to say that the policy elites of the Democratic Party haven't been totally concerned about the white working class. But at the same time, fundamentally what's going on and what Donald Trump has done is change the focus of the white working class from a sort of engaged and constructive politics to a politics of pointing the finger. Mm-hmm. You know, the media sort of asked me to be the spokesman for the white working class voter who's voting for Trump, right? But as somebody who doesn't like Trump myself, I understand where Trump's voters come from, but I also don't like Trump himself, and that's made me realize that maybe I'm not quite part of either world totally.
You see my point? That happened 8 years ago, guys. That happened 8 years ago. He's on record saying, go look up the full interview yourself. He's on record saying he's a never Trump guy. He's on record saying, I have my own ideas. I have my own opinions. He's someone that clearly has grown grown over the past 8 years and saw a situation in which, hey, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I can have a conversation with this guy, and maybe my specific presence, my ideologies versus his ideas, if we merge together, we can go out and create and accomplish some incredible things. All right. I play that and I bring this up because every last one of you listening to me right now has the ability to do it. Every single person. This is not the politician's responsibility. This is not the government's responsibility. This is not something that you need to go look for assistance for. This is something that goes on in your own heart and in your own mind. This is something that you really want in life. And like I said, I'll give you an example. This was back in 2001. All right. Back in 2001, this is back when I was I must have been sixth or seventh grade or something like that. I was still in middle school. My entire life was surrounded around youth football. That was my entire identity. My name, as one Crookshank, as you can see, incredibly difficult to pronounce for most people. First, my only acceptance that I ever got growing up was on the football field. All right. So 2001, I was playing for a team named the Briggs Cheney White Oak Warriors, and we had an opponent, rivals that we had lost to the year before. The name of the team was the Olney Bears. All right, coached by the late John Vassos, the quarterback of that team. Shout out to Deontay Twyman. I looked at him; it just wasn't fair because he was playing quarterback at that level. And he's just slinging it left, right, slinging it left, right. I'll never forget actually the week before, the day before we played them, the only week, Coach Bryant was telling us, like, in a way that I've never seen a coach this into youth football. He was so locked into it. Even the Friday before we played them Saturday morning, he's looking at us like in this serious face, like, look, guys, this is a serious ball club. This is a serious ball club. Now, Olney was more on the rich side. I could say the suburban side. They had the late Coach Vassos, who was known in the community as the coach with the money, the coach that was loaded. And they had the resources, the financial resources. They had the fundamental talent. They were the Olney Bears, and they played their ass off. And they actually ended up beating us that year, the year before, the year 2000, before 2001, so the year prior was when I was in 5th grade. They ended up beating us. We had a close game against them in the regular season, and then we made it to the championship, and we ended up losing, like not just losing, but getting our ass smacked, like getting our ass beat. I'll never forget the score was like 29-7. The only thing that we could actually rest on was the fact that we didn't get shut out. All right. So remember, Deontay was slinging it, beat our ass, all that kind of stuff. So the next year, what happened is that we knew everyone was moving up in 85-pound and all that. And Alney got something happened. So Alney got caught practicing early, some ridiculous thing that the youth, back in those days with local youth leagues, it's a lot different than the way it is now with youth football, where you can't have, teams practicing before the time, and it wasn't 7-on-7 and all that kind of stuff. It was a different time, right? So apparently what happened, Alney got caught doing something illegal for league rules, local league rules, or whatever it was, and they were not allowed to go to the playoffs. So they were still able to have their regular season, but they weren't allowed to go to the playoffs. How so? That made us the favorites of winning the county championship. However, so they let Alney, roll with the regular season, but they banned him from the playoffs. So what happened was that game in the regular season between the Alney Bears and the Brick Cheney White Oak Warriors, that was the game, right? It was their Super Bowl. I remember talking to Deontay actually after that the next year, and he was telling us, because we teamed up the next year, he was telling us that was our Super Bowl. That was our Super Bowl. We came into that game saying, we got to show these Brick Cheney White Oak Warriors that we still are the Alney Bears and we're winning this game. That was the game. I remember, and in fact, what actually happened was the president of the entire organization, and shout out to his name was James White, he thought about moving that game more to like the afternoon. He didn't want the game too early. He wanted to move the game in the afternoon because he knew that was going to be packed. And we're talking about kids. We were 6th grade kids. We weren't in high school yet. We're still 2 years away from high school, and this game was packed, all right, in Maryland of all places. This isn't like a big, football hotbed. This was, Montgomery County, Silver Spring, Maryland. Like, this isn't where a lot of, NFL, this wasn't Miami, Florida, or anything like that, right? So anyway, we played them in the regular season, and we returned the favor. We just straight spanked that ass. We beat the Alney Bears, and because they beat us the year before, we get them this year. It felt like what was going to happen, and because we're 6th grade kids, we felt like it was going to be every single year going up from 85-pound to 95-pound to 110. We thought it was going to be at least 2 more, but just a great rivalry, right? So we were going at each other and talking a little mess and all that. So what happened was that year in 2001, we made it all the way to the Super Bowl, and we lost the Super Bowl and lost the Super Bowl game. But what happened was, with the reason that we lost that game, and I can confidently say this, obviously can't be proven, but I can confidently say this as someone that went through it. We lost that Super Bowl because right before the game, 2 of our star players were overweight. All right. At this stage, they would weigh us before every game, and we had to be a certain weight in order to play because, you're dealing with politics and you're in the DC area and all that kind of stuff. So 2 of our star players ended up missing weight, which was complete BS, because what happened was before every game, the coaches would actually weigh every player. So you're telling me between the night before they weighed them and then these scales. So anyway, I won't get too off track because I'll start talking about that and I'll forget about the subject today. Anyway, we lose the Super Bowl game, and then in my opinion, what happened was after that game, after that night, after we had it with I think it was Montgomery County Public League, Capital Belt. That was it. It was called the Capital Beltway League. Once that happened, in my opinion, I think Coach Bryant decided he was going to just leave the league in general and move over to Pop Warner, which is known as the National League, where you make it all the way. When you make it all the way to a championship, you actually go to Florida, you win a championship. That's where the championship games are played. Pop Warner has been around for years. We played, the competition was going to be a whole lot different than county kids. We're going to be playing teams from DC. We're going to be playing teams from Virginia. We're going to be playing teams from Baltimore. In fact, the Northwood Rams. Go look up the Northwood Rams. The Northwood Rams were running Pop Warner football before we got there, right? So when we made the move from the Capital Beltway League to Pop Warner, that's when the competition was going to be a whole lot more steep, like real like hood Baltimore too. Like this wasn't no BS, Townsend suburb. This was like kids from like hood parts of Baltimore, rough parts of Baltimore. And I remember during that banquet when Coach Bryant actually made the announcement that we're going to Pop Warner, that, he was kind of mentioning, all right, some of these guys from Olney, some of these guys from Montgomery Village, a lot of the teams that we played, they're going to be joining us, Maplewood and stuff like that. They're going to be joining us. All right. So you got to know a lot of the things that we kind of said about them, a lot of the mindset that you had towards Deontay and, Nick and Dominique and some of the other guys that were coming from these other programs. Now y'all got to mature. All right. Y'all got to mature, understand as men, hey, y'all were, rivals, or y'all were playing against them or whatever. And now it's time to mature, to do bigger things and do something for your city, do something from your county, for your county, do something for your area that has not been done. You could look at youth football. When it comes to youth football in the state of Maryland, and you type in the White Oak Warriors, you are not going to see another football program that has put the area on the map. The best, I say it all the time. I've said I remember actually doing a workshop, because I do a lot of workshops for coaches when I was heavily involved with PCA. I remember doing a workshop in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at a school that you probably heard about named St. Thomas Aquinas, which has a again powerhouse football program, has so many guys in the league that I wouldn't even try to name them all. Tons of just NFL guys coming in and out of St. Thomas Aquinas. And I remember saying this when I did a workshop for them. It's like 70 plus coaches. And I said that the White Oak Warriors are the best youth football program in the entire country. And I said it without batting an eye, without blinking. I remember I got a little pushback, some people got a little testy with me or wanted to say something, but I stand by it. I mean it. It's the best football program ever. And it's particularly, in my opinion, obviously I'm a little biased, but in my opinion, if you look at 2001 and you look at 2002 and seeing how we were rivals with this team, and then the way we came together and won a championship the next year. So what happened was, we move over to Pop Warner. We merge with these guys that we played with just in the county. We go undefeated. The head coach of the team, again, came from Olney. We got the head coach of the team, his name, the late John Vassos, and then the offensive coordinator, Coach Jamie Staines. He was the offensive coordinator for my team. And then the defensive coordinator, Coach Mike Wills. He was defensive coordinator, and they were like magicians. I mean, Coach Jamie came in and he implemented a pass game to go with our run that was just not fair at the youth level. It was not fair at the youth level. All right. Coach Mike, again, kept it simple when it comes to defense. Hey, just find the football. And Coach Vassos had that perspective. He had that perspective of being a very successful businessman, understanding how teams are run, understanding how everybody has their roles. And he had us going into every single game believing that we were going to win. The first game we played was against the Northwood Rams, this team that was dominating the Pop Warner League for years. All right, dominate. I mean, just the national champions. He would tell us the weeks before we played that first game against Northwood. He would be telling us weeks and weeks in advance. These are the national champions. You're walking into you're going to Baltimore. You're going to the hood, like you went to the hood parts of Baltimore and going and trying to play the Northwood Rams. Y'all better come and bring it. And he reminded us of that every single day. We go out, we tap some Northwood ass, go undefeated, and we win the championship. That's what I mean when I say it's important. It's important, yes, to disagree with folks, to go at it, to have your opinions. But when it comes to wanting to do bigger things, all right, very similar to what I just told you in regards to how we moved from the Capital Beltway League to Pop Warner, is very similar to what we were able to witness with JD Vance and Donald Trump. So what I decided to do, because again, it is my responsibility. I take that responsibility because I consider myself very, very blessed. I consider myself very, very lucky and very fortunate to have had these incredible experiences in which I can relay the message to you. What I decided to do was I decided to dive deeper into what JD Vance is all about, because there's such a huge contradiction. There's such a huge contradiction in regards to how so many people are reacting versus who JD Vance really is. And I'll play you a couple clips of it, but I strongly, it is worth all 12, I think it's like 12 minutes of it, in which Megyn Kelly, who is an absolute rock star, by the way, man, she be bringing it. I'll be tuning into some Megyn Kelly every day now, dog. Like, she's a rock star, like some real actual journalism. Like, I love me some Megyn Kelly. I'll just go out and say this now, right? But she did a piece on JD Vance a couple years ago when he first put out his book. And when you consider the kind of nasty things that get said about him now versus what he lived through, there's people who are getting it so wrong. In fact, I mean, I remember just last week I was getting into a debate with some, again, heavy leftist people who swear, Trump is just a menace and she can do nothing right. I remember I brought J.D. Vance up to some of these people, and the only thing they're talking about is how he made up a story about, people eating dogs and cats and Haitians, and which, again, it may or may not be true. I don't know. But when I watched this piece, and when you watch this piece, go and watch it. Like I said, go watch it. It's Megyn Kelly. Just look up Megyn Kelly and J.D. Vance when he put his book out. It was a couple years ago. But when you watch this piece and you see what this man has lived through, you feel safe. You really will feel a whole lot better. I'm sure you'll feel a whole lot better in regards to who's actually in office, who can really resonate with people, who knows a thing or two about people really struggling and figuring out. So this was the pieces of the piece, and I'll respond to it as we go.
Adverse childhood consequences.
Sure.
That some kids suffer.
Yep.
In growing up. Being sworn at, insulted, or humiliated by your parents.
Sure. Check.
Being pushed, grabbed, or having something thrown at you.
Check.
Having parents who are separated or divorced.
Check.
Living with an alcoholic or a drug user.
Check.
Living with someone who is depressed or attempted suicide.
Check.
Watching a loved one be physically abused.
Check.
You're batting 1,000.
Yeah.
Given where he came from, J.D. Vance should have been a grim statistic. His parents grew up poor in rural Kentucky. His own tough childhood was in the Rust Belt ruins of Ohio. But Vance escaped what he calls his cultural inheritance, wrote a memoir about it, and landed on the bestseller list.
Do you see my point? Do you see how wrong people are getting it? Do you see how the current media system and the current people who want you think in a certain way can paint somebody as some villain, some misogynist, some person who's just bad for this country, can have you actually believing that as even after the landslide victory, even after so many people, clearly the entire country has made their voice clearly heard, even after, they're still feeding into this. And if you don't do your own research and really look at who people are, what they're all about, eventually your situation will only get worse. You can't depend on the people who are only feeding you negative information, negative stories. You gotta do your own research. I mean, I again, go watch it for yourself. But the entire piece is about his story. The entire piece is really talking about some of the things that he lived through as a child. And like I played you before, he was someone who was against Donald Trump. He was someone who didn't like him, but they were able to come together and work out their differences and humbly come together and figure things out. Yet, what the identity politicians like to push, with the people who, they want to get likes and, subscribers, and they want to get people, they want this cult following. They will have you thinking that all white males are bad. All white males are racist. Everyone who's white is racist because they support this man. He clearly didn't support him. Yet he was able to come to a situation where they figured things out. That's the problem. The problem is that. All right, I'll play you a couple more, and then I'll close you out with really understanding how much power you actually have as a citizen of this country.
How could I not be? Right?
Why do you
I'm
think?
sitting here talking to Megyn Kelly. This is great.
Explain this appeal, because I think you have your finger on it.
Hillbilly Elegy hit a nerve in the presidential election cycle. Vance became a go-to guy on cable and in print, a CNN commentator, a contributor to the New York Times.
Wow.
He became a guide to the anger, rebellion, and pessimism in the communities that carried Donald Trump. He understood what they cared about and didn't. Do you think that it explains why, when The so-called coastal elites were getting very upset over the many offenses that Trump caused. Some of the sexism, some of the foul-mouthed language.
Sure.
That this was not particularly shocking because a lot of these folks had grown up around that.
Absolutely. I've criticized a lot of Trump's rhetoric, and I'm not a big fan of some of the things that he said, but there was almost a sense where people were offended by Trump, not because of the substance of what he said, but because of how he said it. Good society people should not talk in this way. And I just never quite understood that criticism.
Please join me in welcoming J.D. Vance to the lectern.
Vance is in a unique position, a colossal success by any measure. A Marine, a graduate of Ohio State and Yale Law School, a Silicon Valley venture capitalist.
And I relate a lot to this.
And now an unusual move, back home again to Ohio. He returned.
And that's it, guys. You know, I have 2 more clips to play you, but before I play you them and we react to it, I just think it's important. You know, I think it's important because we do have a lot of folks out there that are getting paid off continuously dividing you. They're getting paid to continuously feed you a lot of nonsense that you aren't responsible for the decisions you make. We have folks who are, you know, they're running on this abortion issue, and you heard all the nonsense. You heard so much nonsense about I think they called it reproductive rights or something like that. And you heard a lot of nonsense with the storm in the Capitol and how that was his fault. And I got to tell you, and I'll probably do it deeper. I have to do a separate episode talking about this, but I teach kids from K through 5. It's a brand new startup school. And one of the things about the school that I teach at is we really monitor the reading levels of the young kids, and we see, you know, how bad things are in regards to reading levels, not just in our school, but around the surrounding counties. You know, the school was started so we can engage kids in learning by using creativity and make it so they want to learn, make it so that they're excited about reading. One of the things that as we talk to some of our donors and, you know, we kind of, I'd say, pitch or get them to donate to the school, one of the things that we substitute, instead of calling it ROI, we say the ROI for our school is the fact that kids are going to be on higher reading levels, and they're going to be more reliable for jobs, more dependable for work, more dependable people when it comes to work, and more qualified candidates that you'll be getting because they're a CCE graduate and not a graduate of other public schools, where if you look at those numbers, it'll bring tears to you. That's a real reason to cry. You know, Jimmy Kimmel's crying about, you know, the election, but a real reason to actually get emotional and get teary-eyed is when you look at the reading levels of young kids, not just out here in Palm Beach County, but all across America, how we have gotten away from really teaching kids how to pick up a book, read it, interpret it, have their own opinion about it, and figure out what the best option is for them, and really be critical thinkers. That would be a reason to cry. All right, that's actually a reason to cry. But when I see a Megyn Kelly, who was with Fox, and the platform that she has now, and she has her own podcast, has built up her own platform, and then you hear the story that she's actually reporting on with JD Vance, it gives me personally, and hopefully it's doing the same for you, but me personally, I get left with the feeling of hope. I get left with the feeling of, man, you know, if those two can do it, if those two can do it, me, myself, as a current author of 5 books, I'll show you 3. Show you 3 right here. By the way, go get them. MakeYourMove.com, MakeYamove.com. I gotta do a plug. If they can do it with their intellectual property, they can sit down, look at a laptop, have a laptop like this, create their own platforms the same way they can do it. There's no reason why you can't do it. That should be the feeling that we have moving forward. Do not listen to these pessimists who are on national TV, feeding you a lot of divisive language and, you know, giving you excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse to not take responsibility for your own shit, for your own life, to take some damn accountability for what it is you do. Again, I've said it all, I say it over and over. What's going on in your house should be more important than what's going on in the damn White House. So I'll play you these last two clips that should inspire you to do great things, and then I'll officially close you out.
Don't say this in a sycophantic way. I don't have a girl crush on JD Vance. I love only one man, and that's my husband. But JD Vance is a beautiful person. That's my biggest takeaway was this is a beautiful man. He has been through a lot and has overcome and has managed to like stay within his own soul, solid, spiritual, connected to his family, very aware of his own failings and the dangers to him, given his upbringing, loves his wife, his family, all of his family, his nuclear family, and the children he has, of course, with Usha. And I'm rooting for that guy to succeed. I don't really care if it's as vice president or a senator or just as a human. The more you learn about him, I think, the more you like him. Now, I don't know. He's certainly more qualified to be.
You see my point? Like the human being, the human being. And the takeaway from that, the thing that we all have to really come to the conclusion with is, regardless of your title, regardless of your politics, regardless of anything like that, all right, you should be more so about connecting with quality human beings, connecting with people who want to do some good in this world, and not being around folks, again, like I played you earlier, who have such a divisive tone to everything they say. And if you really look at it logically and use your common sense, that divisive tone that they take is how they get paid, because it's what gets them the views, and what gets them the likes, and what gets them a lot of the traction. So they're going to keep feeding into it because that's how they get paid. The last clip I'll show you, and we'll officially close out.
Cities.
And he's formed his own nonprofit, Our Ohio Renewal. His return has started speculation that he's planning something political. Everyone wants to know whether JD's going to run for office.
Who's everyone?
Everyone. Just everyone. Trust me. I speak to them.
Okay.
What do you think? Should he run for office?
I think someday, if the time is right, and if he really feels that that's the best way that he can contribute to his home, then I think that would be a great idea.
Why do you get uncomfortable when that idea comes up?
I think that, when people ask me if I want to run for office, part of me wonders, like, do they think I just give off a used car salesman vibe?
Don't you think it's more born of hope that you could be a real change agent?
Yeah, no, I think that's the optimistic take on it. I'm very flattered when people ask me, and you never say never, but it's just not something that I think about doing right now.
And so...
Oh, man. Like I said, man, go watch the whole thing yourself. It's Megyn Kelly, JD Vance. It's an incredible piece. It is worth the 12 minutes of your life. And as you can see, he's not the misogynist. He's not the racist. He's not the person that you need to be, concerned or afraid of if you're a person of color. I mean, the guy's he's married to an Indian woman. He's married to a woman of color. The pessimists out there, the critics, the cynicism out there, the people out there who are just cynical in their own way. They get paid to be cynical. The race hustlers out there, the folks out there will feed you the opposite thing. But when you come over here to the Move Swiftly world, we give you a message of optimism. We give you a message of teamwork. We give you a message of being innovative and being very much accountable for the people that we have in our lives, for the people that we work with, for the people that we look to build great things with. We hold ourselves accountable here, hold our teammates accountable here. And when you come over to this world, when you really wake up and you decide you're tired of turning on your social media every day, or turn on your TV every day, and you're hearing a bunch of people who are just negative in general, when you decide that that's what you want to do with your life, then you come over here and it's an incredible time. We're having a great time. All right. So, like I said, that's today's episode. Come here. We do this every other day now. Next live stream, we're recording this on Friday. So Sunday, I'll be going live again. Shout out to Miss Kimberly Blue. We'll be doing our weekly Stay Hired Sundays, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Saturday again. This is usually when I go live. The main website to check out to dive deeper into all my work, if you want information, if you want to make sure you get your free guide on freeguide.makeyourmove.com. All that stuff is available on makeyourmove.com. One-stop shop for all your teamwork and your self-development needs. As one Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, checking out. You guys continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.